Okay, now we're getting the daily signals turning back to bullish on Sunday's close. So that means we're likely getting the larger counter trend right now. Weekly signals are still bearish. Now, this may fool the retail investors, the herd. This may fool the experts, but it's not fooling my indicators. My weekly signals are still warning that we've likely topped. This is the counter trend rally I've been speaking of. So back testing the April trend line. Watch the video all the way through, but if we can clear it, you might get up to the 61 or 78.6 Fibonacci. We're testing the 50 period yet again and back testing the April low trend line. If you stall there, you stall just above the 50% retracement. If you go higher and clear this level, then you can get to the golden pocket, the 61.8 Fibonacci near 117,000, the upper channel line near 118, or maybe as high as 120 if you get a larger Fibonacci retracement. If you stall at this trend line, then you don't reach those levels. And again, I'll show you those levels. Watch the video all the way through. There's no bottoming signal. Bars are flipping back to blue, but there's no bottoming signal here. Once the counter trend is done, I got topping signals in the weekly time frame. You're likely coming back down to test 74,000. You're probably going to get 100% retracement down here when I called the very day of the bottom, and you're likely setting up a massive head and shoulders pattern. You know where this head and shoulders pattern measures to? It measures to 22,000. 80% drop for Bitcoin is 25,000. So it means you're probably going to drop more than 80%. You're probably going to drop 84, 86% or something like that and end up seeing this play out. Watch the trend line right here from the April low. Do we stall there or do we get above it and reach the 61.8 Fibonacci in the upper channel line? You'll see it in the video shortly. Again, Bitcoin has gotten topping signals at major resistance here. The bars are red in the weekly time frame. The 50-week moving average, we're trying to bounce just above it now. So we're probably getting the counter trend rally of the ABC that will likely stall around the 61.8 Fibonacci or the upper channel, around 117 to 118,000, maybe as high as 121,000. Once that's done, you're likely coming back to take out the 50-week moving average. So again, the rally is a gift, an opportunity, the last exit point for Bitcoin for the complete collapse. Okay, I just wanted to do a quick update. Bitcoin closed and it's been open for here a couple hours here, and got word of a potential trade deal now as Trump and Xi have a meeting here on the 30th later this week that would prevent the 100% tariffs from kicking in on November 1st. It's going to be a busy week. We got the Fed, stock market earnings with the Wall Street darlings. Still risk of the sour loans with the banks, and that's coming. You'll hear more about that in the coming days ahead. Bitcoin has likely already topped, now setting up a lower high to move to probably take out the 50-week moving average. Getting a Fibonacci retracement right now. Stock market will likely peak this week, slamming into these major trend lines of resistance. If you exclude the shadow from the 2022 low, the S&P 500, you're slamming right into it with futures. Usually at a stock market top, Bitcoin peaks first, and Bitcoin peaks first, and then the stock market peaks after. That's what happened in 2021. Bitcoin peaked, and the stock market peaked right after that. This rally we're having right now with Bitcoin is designed to fool retail investors, the herd, as I call them. You remember those folks, the folks that never saw the top, told us we had a breakout when it was a fake out. The people that told us we were never going to have the liquidation saw. If I told you back up at the top as we were going into the top that we were likely going down to 100,000. We hit 103,000. Talked about that low 100,000 area. And I told you that might be a bottom if we can get the counter trend right now. Or if the bulls can retake control, flip the weekly signals around, you might continue it, but I think that's less likely. You got people like Tom Lee saying we're going to 200,000 and 250,000. The last time Tom Lee said that, he was predicting 168,000. In October, Bitcoin peaked a few days later in November, on November 10th, I believe, peaked at 69,000. Lee was calling for 168,000. Then we saw Bitcoin sharply drop 30%. He revised that down to 100,000 for 2021 and then said, oh, we're going to hit 200,000 by 200,000 by 2022. None of that ever happened. Peaked at 69,000 and dropped 52%. 90 days after Lee was calling for Bitcoin 168,000, and then In December, he called for Bitcoin 200,000. The last time Lee called for Bitcoin 200,000, it collapsed, and we moved into a bear market. You dropped 50%, it rebounded, and then you ended up in a bear market dropping 78% from the top. People telling us, Tom Lee says so. Tom Lee's a permabull. And Tom Lee really blindsided by the top because he's a permabull. He'll be blindsided by the top right now. He's saying in the next 65 days, Bitcoin is going to be at 200 to 250,000. Increasing the market cap by over 2 trillion, hit 200,000, and by around 3 trillion if we go to 250,000. That's never happened before in 65 days. Made unrealistic targets back then. He's making them right now. Bitcoin is likely topped. Bitcoin can, if the bulls can somehow manage to flip it around, Bitcoin has a shot at going to the 161 extension level at around 175,000 or just under it. That's if the bulls can flip it around. I don't think they're going to do it. I think the bull cycle completed. I think you're getting a counter trend now. I see evidence of a top. If I see evidence that changes, I will change because I am neither bull nor bear. I'm not interested in the bullish side. I'm not interested in the bearish side. I'm interested in the right side of the trade. Right now, again, my weekly signals are warning, you got a Bitcoin top. The Bitcoin cycle is warning, you got a Bitcoin top. Likely peaked over here unless I see evidence otherwise. Now, the RSI is moving above 50 here, moving back to the trend lines, which I've talked about. Just one more thing about Lee, and everyone's, oh, this proves it. Well, you know, nobody wants to talk about his predictions back in 2022 and 2021. At every decline with Bitcoin all the way down, he kept telling us Bitcoin was likely to bottom. It didn't. Tom Lee predicted 200,000 by the end of 2022, and Bitcoin ended up bottoming out in late 2022 at 15,000. Tom Lee, when he was predicting 200,000 in December of 2021, Bitcoin had already peaked, and it ended up crashing the 3 months. His original prediction in October, right before it peaked, of 168,000, and then his December peak of 200,000, it ended up crashing 52% in 3 months. He's a perma bull. Bulls love him when we're going up. A perma bull, and he's going to be blindsided just as he was back in 2021, along with the other moon boys. People tell, oh, Tom Lee said so. Tom Lee was oblivious to the last top. Called 200,000, 168,000, and then later called for 200,000, and then when we dropped 52%, he doubled down on it. Back when it dropped 30% in December, and then again in January. So again, the last time he called for 200,000, Bitcoin collapsed, but yet he's going to be correct in that we're going to go 200 or 250,000 in the next 65 days. I don't think so. People tell me, oh, no, you're wrong. Tom Lee said so. People are going to be falling him off a cliff like they did the last Bitcoin top. Because he's a perma bull. Told you what needs to happen for the bulls to retake control. If I see that happen, I will turn back to bullish because I am neither bull nor bear. But right now, my signals are telling me to be bearish. Now, my signals are flipping back to short-term bullish, meaning we're either resuming the advance, which I think is less likely, or getting the bigger counter trend that I warned could possibly happen back at the bottom. I predicted a rally would happen. I told you it could be a feeble rally or a bigger rally. These trend lines are likely to be tested, and if we can get above this trend line from the April low, which we're getting above the trend line now from the lows over here from the higher low in April, we could try to go to the 61.8 Fibonacci. But I think this rally is going to end up failing. They go higher. My signals are still bullish, and I'm now having trend signals turn back to bullish. The weekly charts are still bearish, telling me this rally is likely doomed to failure. And I think you're going to end up seeing a peak with the Fed and a sell-off surrounding the Fed. I think Powell's going to come off very, very concerned about the economy. Could see markets begin to panic. I think you'll get the cut out of the Fed. In December, you'll get another cut out of the Fed, but by January, I think Bitcoin will be down 50%, as I've said. I think Bitcoin's already peaked, as I've said. People tell me, you don't understand. Tom Lee said so. Or my favorite moon boy said so. The people that never saw the top the last time. Now, again, if my signals, which are correct, back to bullish in the weekly time frame, then the bulls have a shot of regaining control. Right now, they are still bearish. I talked about going up to the 50 level and turning back down here with the counter trend. Coming up to this trend line, we'll see if we stall there. We got just above the 50-period moving average. Again, you'll probably rally into the Fed meeting now, which is that alternative scenario that I talked about. Just bring it up close and remove everything so you can see what's going on here. Again, we're coming back up to the trend line, back testing that trend line from the April low, and you're hitting the 50-week moving average. Now, again, I'm not looking at the Fibonacci retracement levels, but you could reach the 61.8 Fibonacci or the 78.6 Fibonacci. Called a bottom over here, and I told you it could be a feeble rally or it could be a bigger rally. I told you I thought it would be a feeble rally. We go down and hit the 50-week moving average and then get a big bounce. But I told you if I was wrong, we get the big bounce right here, right now, which seems to be what's happening. Regardless, it's still likely a counter trend. I know the mood boys are all excited. Here we go. I mean, these are the same people who told us over here that we had a breakout. And when I called the top and we had a fake out, the same people that told us, laughing at me for saying we're going back to the 100,000 area. We are going to crash back down. Ended up getting the liquidation move. These are the people that were blindsided by it. These are the people that told us we had a bottom over here, and then we still went to new lows over here. The moon boys are oblivious to what's going on. Now, I told you down here, I told you we're either going to get a feeble rally. I predicted a rally because of the 4-hour divergence. I told you it'd be a feeble rally or a big rally. I told you I have the guts to tell you what I think. I told you I thought it'd be a feeble rally. But I also told you that if it was the bigger rally right now, then we rally up towards the Fed meeting and then likely crash with the Fed, then going down and rallying with the Fed down into the 50-week moving average. It looks like you're setting up for a Fed crash to me right now. Amazing. The moon boys telling us it's a breakout. Moon boy the other day, we're never going back below 110,000 again. And yet we dropped down to 103,000. I think you got to top. If I see evidence of the bull market resuming in the fourth quarter, I will let you know, and I will turn back to bullish. I'm interested in making money. I'm not interested in being a bear. I'm not interested in being a bull. I'm being interested in trading the direction of Bitcoin. So, trader, I trade back and forth. My signals are turning back to bullish right now. The Sunday close above the 50-period moving average here, so you probably have a shot at a larger Fibonacci retracement right here, right now. The alternative scenario, told you we get a bounce. I gave you those two scenarios. The second one's playing out. I thought the first one would play out. I was wrong. I was right about the rally. And my alternative scenario is now playing out. See the stochastic reach an extreme here going into the Fed meeting and then likely see it roll over, confirm a lower high and a larger Fibonacci retracement. Or stall at this trend line or try to get above this trend line and then end up closing back below it, getting a topping tail or something, but stalling around the trend line or getting above it and then reversing it. You might close above it, and that's why I'm telling you if we can get a larger Fibonacci retracement, but be surprised if we tried to get above that trend line and then get a topping tail or something. But be watching this trend line from the April low. We did move above this one right here, but we're coming back and potentially back testing this one. We already did it once, got a topping tail there, 3% rally, and then dropped and closed 2% lower. You can see something similar here, or even try to get above it with the topping tail. Let me show you the Fibonacci retracements. Just remember, the people, one other thing, the people calling, oh, we have a breakout, that never saw all this, that told us that the liquidation bottom was it, that told us that that wasn't even going to happen, but yet now they're the experts and telling us that that was the bottom, and then we went lower. Now they're telling us that's the bottom. And again, these are the same people back when I called the day of the bottom in April, on April 7th, told us that Bitcoin, a lot of the people in the herd said, oh, Bitcoin, it's over, and all season's canceled, and that's it, forget it. And again, that's when I called the bottom at key support. Here I've called the top at key resistance, because I see evidence of that. If that changes, I will change. I'm not a moon boy. I change with my signals. The moon boys never do. They're just permabulls forever, likely setting up a lower high. So again, let's look at those Fibonacci retracement levels, but keep your eye on the stochastic here. The stochastic is likely coming up here, and it's probably going to roll over with the Fed meeting, surrounding the Fed meeting, just before, with it, or just after it, and you'll probably see a peak, again, going into the Fed meeting with it or just after it. I'll show you the Fibonacci's in just a second. 78.6 Fibonacci. Here's the 61.8 Fibonacci. And again, I just move the Fibonacci's over here so you can see them a little better. The trend line right here in the 4-hour time frame, we exceeded that level. Now we're getting above the 200. The 50 is still below the 200 period moving average. Could be by the time they cross, you get a top, or again, going to the 61.8 Fibonacci, exceeding the 50% retracement right now. I talked about this divergence though, and then my signals validated that. And again, I told you, I don't know if we're going to get a big rebound or a small rebound, a feeble move or a powerful move. I told you if we got the powerful move, it's likely we have a 5-leg push lower that I've marked right here, and you're getting an ABC up for a counter trend, either to the 61.8 Fibonacci or 78.6 Fibonacci. But I told you, if we go down and we hit the 50-week moving average first, then you might try to rally with the Fed. Here, this is suggesting we're going to sell off with the Fed. So again, you've likely got your counter trend rally going on. I know boom boys are convinced. The people that never saw the sell-off of 18%, nearly 18%, you know, those people, they're convinced that this is it. But again, turned off major resistance in the weekly time frame. The weekly signals are still bearish. So again, this is what I think is happening. And you still might get a divergence right here before all is said and done on the RSI and on the MACD. The parameter is still negative, and is what might happen is a parameter might come up here to the center line and end up peaking. That's where Bitcoin might peak with parameter, and then it might roll over and it might form a divergence before you get a bottom. Parameter didn't form a divergence at the bottom, it still may end up doing it. As I've said, it's been the divergences that have been calling the turns, but you just, again, you don't know if it's going to be a feeble move or you don't know if it's going to be a powerful move. So I think there's evidence now with this rally going higher. Now my signals are flipping back to bullish, that you've likely bottomed here and that you've got the counter trend rally going on for wave 2. I think wave 1 is now done and you are in wave 2. And I see evidence of that. Signals turning back to bullish. Likely see Bitcoin peak this week in a counter trend near the 61.8 Fibonacci or 78.6 Fibonacci in all likelihood. I've shown you both of these L8 wave counts, but I told you I thought the other one was going to play out rather than this one. This was my alternative count. I told you if it plays out, then we have a bottom here and we'll get a larger counter trend right now to the Fibonacci retracements into the golden pocket here between the 61.8 Fibonacci and the 78.6 Fibonacci. You can see that over here, and that's between 117,000 and 121,000. So again, Bitcoin's rallied up above the previous peak over here, where we turned off of that one trend line, got above it, rallied up 3%, dropped 2%, the 200. Now we're overthrowing the 200. We're moving above that high. So that tells me the count is being invalidated, and the alternative count is now playing out, which is what I've talked about of bottoming here and getting an ABC and a more powerful move upward. I think you're going to get a lower high. I just told you before, I thought we would come down to 100,000, and then get the more powerful rally back up to these levels. I told you, again, because my signals back to bullish down here, I knew we were going to get a rally in that bullish divergence. But like I said, I don't know the future. I don't know if it was going to be a feeble or a powerful rally. I thought we'd go down to that 50-week first. Now you're bottoming just above the 50-week, getting this rally, and then you're going to go back and take out the 50-week. So those are all turning back to bullish on Sunday's close. You're likely going to get the bigger rally. And again, if you go a little higher here, I have a parallel boundary from these lows over here to the high over here, and that takes us into the golden pocket. 117,000 is the 17,138 is the 61.8 Fibonacci. If we hit this level, this trend line right here, in the next few days, let's say that's the 27th. If we hit it tomorrow, you're looking at 118,000, the mid 118,000 area or so. If you hit it on the Fed day, then we're looking at, again, that same area just a little bit lower. So you're looking at that maybe upper 118,000 to mid 118,000 area if we go and try to reach that trend line either Tuesday or Wednesday, the day of the Fed meeting. So again, we're going to reach that red trend line up there and get wave C, complete wave 2, and then you're going to see Bitcoin collapse and come back down and take out 103,000 in all likelihood. going on. Again, I think Bitcoin's likely moving to the 117,000 to 121,000 area or so in here. You may overthrow the red trend line. I think you're probably going to try to stall around it or maybe get a topping tail above it and still hit the 78.6 Fibonacci. Bitcoin, though, is famous for stalling at the 61.8 Fibonacci or right around that area, which would take us to the red trend line, which would take us to the 117 or 118,000 area. So just be aware of that, but you're likely in the wave C. You'll probably get a counter trend. Whether the 50 can get back above the 200 or not and mark a top, or, which often is the case, our bullish cross over here was associated with the top here shortly thereafter. Sometimes it's just before. Sometimes you may not be able to get that 50 back above the 200 and you might go get a top and turn back down. If we stall around the 200 period moving average and turn, and signals revert back to bearish, then you may not reach the 61 to 78.6 Fibonacci, 61.8 Fib to 78.6 Fibonacci. But I think it's very likely that you're going to reach these levels. In all likelihood, I think that you probably will with the counter trend. But if signals revert back to bearish, then it could end closer here to the 50% retracement and the 200 period moving average. But again, the alternative count here playing out now. The Moon Boy is absolutely convinced. Here we go. And again, this is likely nothing more than a counter trend rally, as they were fooled by the breakout, as they were completely duped by the crash, and then fooled believing that was the bottom, and then we still went lower. So too, they're going to be fooled here. Now, again, I'm not being fooled. I expect a lower high. I don't know the future, and if you know the future, and if you're one, I have amazing indicators, and I predicted the rally. I don't know if it's going to be a feeble rally or a powerful rally. My signals are still bullish. Hit the trend lines of resistance, so I thought a shot of turning down. I was wrong about a feeble rally. I think we're getting the more powerful rally now. I talked about that alternative. I always tell you what I think. I'm not always going to be right on what I think, but my signals are still bullish, and my signals did call this bottom, and I still think we get a lower high, and I believe Bitcoin has topped unless I see evidence that it hasn't, which I don't see. I see evidence that Bitcoin has topped. So I'm predicting that Bitcoin is likely going to get a top this week or a lower high. I believe back when I called the top, back here at the October 6th peak, I believe that was the top, and I'm looking for a lower high. I just thought we would drop to 100,000 and then get the bigger rally. I expected a bigger rally. We're just getting it sooner rather than later. But I expect that Bitcoin by January is going to be down 50% or more. And I believe Bitcoin is already topped. It cracks me up. I get these people on social media, because I stick my neck out, because I say what I think, or I am at a disadvantage in that I'm going to be right most of the time with my indicators, but I tell you what I think. And it's harder to call short-term price fluctuations than the main movement. Get people out there, even though my signals called the bottom and predicted the rally just as they called the top and predicted the sell-off, I get attacked for telling you exactly what I think. I gave you both possibilities. They're heard out there, see, and not completely ignoring that they told us we had a breakout over here, completely ignoring we dropped 18%, completely ignoring they told us we had a bottom over here and that we got a flash crash that they were oblivious to, that correctly called because I said we were going back towards the 100,000 area. Talked about 100,000 to 101,000 being above the 50-week moving average at 103,000. I heard the Moon Boys wrong about all that, laughing, oh, they're so smart. And again, when the bottom begins to fall out of Bitcoin, and by January when it's down 50%, again, they're not going to be laughing. And by the way, when I called the breakout, when they called it a breakout and I said we were topping and they were laughing at me, we ended up dropping, and they weren't laughing down here. And down here, they were crying. I have a lot more tears to shed because Bitcoin is going to go take out the 50-week moving average after this rally is done. We are getting the counter trend rally. Again, my signals called the bottom with the bullish divergence, but like I said, we got that topping tail. The bars here for the trend remain bearish. They're now flipping back to bullish, so we're probably going to get a larger Fibonacci retracement to 117, 118,000, maybe as high as 121,000 for a Fibonacci retracement of this decline. Again, my signals correctly called the top, the downturn, and now they're flipping back, telling me we're seeing signals all turn back to bullish, saying, again, we're likely getting, and I told you that had to happen. We had to see the signals flip back to bullish if we're going to get the larger counter trend right here, right now for Bitcoin. Larger ABC move. Signals have done a good job. Here we saw bars go sideways back and forth from bearish to bearish, back to bullish here. This is the daily chart. Again, it got the topping signal back over here, just like we had it back in July and August. Got the bottoming signal validating the bullish divergence in the 4-hour time frame. But like I said, I told you I didn't know if it'd be a feeble counter trend or a more powerful counter trend. I told you if that is a bottom and we completed wave 1 down, we're likely going to get the wave 2. I thought that we would go down and get one more push down first, complete the wave 1 before the more powerful rally happened. Wrong about that, but I was right about the rally. And again, I pointed out there's no bearish signal that's happened here. The bar's turned back to bearish, but there's been no sell signal. That's likely going to happen this week. You're likely going to see that in the next 4 trading sessions here in all likelihood. At some point this week, and probably in the next 4 trading sessions, you're going to see Bitcoin top out. 4 trading sessions, because probably just before the Fed meeting, with the Fed meeting, three sessions from now, or 4 sessions from now, just after the Fed meeting, you're likely to see Bitcoin peak in all likelihood. So again, I do think you'll see a lower high established, but it'll probably reach that 117, 118,000 in all likelihood, in the upper boundary of the channel, and the 61.8 Fibonacci, which Bitcoin is famous for reaching that 61.8 Fibonacci. You hit the 78.6 Fibonacci, you're looking at 121,000. I don't know that it makes it that high, but it could. Signals were still on a bullish signal here, off of those resistance levels, but it didn't play out. We're going back up and testing the resistance trend line from the April low right now yet again. And if we clear it, then be watching the 61.8 Fibonacci at 117,000. Trend line at 118,000. The bulls have a real big problem. That is the weekly charts turned to bearish. And see, the bars are still bearish. Now, we just started the week, so we won't know until the final end of the week. But again, we're bouncing just above that 50-week moving average here. You're likely getting the bigger counter trend right now. And in the weekly time frame, you likely have this double top that's eventually going to play out. You have the possible triple top with these smaller in the daily time frame, with these smaller peaks in July, August, and then again in October. But in the weekly time frame, it's more of a double top type of a pattern. And again, Bitcoin will likely be at 60,000 by January, losing half of its value. If it did what it did before, it'll drop about to 60,000. If it did what it did back at the last top, dropping 52% in just a couple of months from the November high down to the January low. If it drops 50%, it's going to 63,000. You're going down here towards the 200-week moving average, currently at 55,000. So you're moving back towards this 200-week moving average. You'll bounce off of it after breaking the 50-week moving average. Then you'll move back towards the 50-week and the 200. So you'll see, this rally likely continue to 117, 118,000 maybe. Then you're going to come down here by January, down right about here, or to the 200-week moving average, but it's at 54,000, 55,000 right now, but 63,000, say, if you get a 50% haircut, and then you'll probably rally back up in the first part of the quarter there, the first quarter in 2026, towards the 50-week moving average, which will be dropping just above it or to it, one or the other, depending on how low it is. It might flatten out and be at higher levels, or dramatically drop. We have to see what it looks like by the time, but you probably rally to it. But that's what's likely going to happen. By the way, Bitcoin topped, which I believe it is. It's going down to 25,000. That's an 80% drop. It's probably going to go more closer to 18 or 20,000, which will be like about an 84 to 86% drop, is what Bitcoin does in its bear market. My signals all begin to turn back to bullish. We clear resistance. I will turn back to bullish. The 4-year cycle is void and not working, obsolete and over. I don't think so. All the experts and all the moon boys and everybody calling this 200 and 250,000 target, and then Bitcoin 1 million and all the. I think it's going to be a big surprise because I think Bitcoin is topped. And again, this is where Tom Lee was calling Bitcoin to reach 168,000 when it was at 64,000 right here. It went as high as 69,000. Bitcoin here in the weekly time frame got a topping tail, got the reversal, got the topping signal. Bitcoin collapsed by 30%. Tom Lee in December called for Bitcoin 200,000 by 2022. It went on to drop a total 50%. 52%, right back up to the 50-week moving average, and then collapsed 78%. I got people telling me, well, he's on TV, he knows. He's a Permabull. Blindsided by the 52% rally, he was blindsided by the top, and he was blindsided by the bear market that dropped 78%. So don't tell me. This proves Bitcoin's going to 200 and 250,000. Last time he predicted 200,000, Bitcoin collapsed 78%. The signals did a great job in calling the top, great job in calling the bottom. Again, I told you if my signals flip back to bullish, we could get the bigger rally right here, right now, the bigger counter trend. They had come back up and stalled there. The rally had stalled there. Not flipping my signals back to bullish until Sunday. Sunday's closed. That's why I'm making the video here on Sunday. So just to let you know, signals are back to bullish. So again, we're likely getting the larger counter trend right now, or if the bulls can regain control, flip the weekly signals back to bullish. I doubt they're going to be able to do it. It was a low volume rally designed to fool the herd, the retail investors, the people that never saw the top, called it a breakout, and never saw the sell-off. They're easily duped. Again, I've been expecting a counter trend. We moved to the 50-week moving average to get it. We're bouncing just above the 50-week moving average. Previously, Bitcoin has found a bottom just above the 50-week moving average during the bull phase here, or just underneath it, or right at it. And again, I told you, and right here it was just above it, right here it was just under it. Again, I told you that it was likely going to be, we were going to try to bounce around in the 50-week moving average. I thought we'd drop under it. I was wrong about that, but I was right about the rally, right about the counter trend. You're likely getting this bounce, and then again, you're probably going to come back and take out that 50-week moving average to confirm a bear market. Seeing the RSI firm up at the 50 level, we're holding above the 50. So again, likely getting the counter trend right now. You've got major resistance directly overhead. This is a resistance when I call the top here, that again, this red trend line, the black trend line back from the 2022, 2021 highs there. Again, so you're probably going to bounce, get a lower high, and then come back and break that level and probably hit this trend line, maybe try to bounce off of that around that level for a couple of weeks. And then break it here. We bounced around the 50 for about 4 weeks. So we'll see what happens here with our bounce right here, and if we end up taking it out and hitting our trend line from the 2022 low. Again, this is likely suggesting that we've topped, but right now we're holding above 50. We're still above the 50 moving average and the 50 level on the RSI. You got to break that in order to validate a bear market and get a 50-50 sell signal. And again, I'll be watching for that in the coming weeks ahead. I think you'll end up peaking with the Fed because we didn't sell off going into the Fed. So you're likely getting the rally, going to peak with the Fed, sell off with the Fed, and come back and try to take out the 50-week moving average.